We're here today with Suresh, Data Protection Architect, and he's going to talk about net backup for Microsoft SQL Server best practices. Right, Suresh?
Yep, thank you, Jason. It's an interesting topic to talk about any time of the day, right? So, protecting any structured data like Microsoft SQL Databases, there are a couple of ways which net backup supports it. From day one, we supported using net backup Microsoft SQL agent-based backups, and the second methodology is used as net backup Microsoft SQL agent-based backup along with snapshot client. I'm going to touch upon both backup methodologies briefly. With the help of the net backup Microsoft SQL agent-based backup, we very well can protect the entire database. We could perform differential incremental backups of the database, the file groups, and also the transaction log-based backups. With the second option, what I talked about, the net backup Microsoft SQL agent-based backup, which is a stream-based backup, along with snapshot client-based backup, as we could use basically Microsoft SQL snapshot-based backup utilizes the virtual device interface, which is behind the scenes. It's the VSS snapshot writer of Microsoft, where the database will be put in a quiesced mode for the backup to happen successfully. When we talk about snapshot, it is nothing but an I/O redirection, where the backup will still be accessed by the users, but the log file will be created where the backup still could access the actual database instance and perform the backups. The one catch-22 in that situation of using a snapshot client or snapshot agent-based backup is like you could always perform a full backups, and there is no differential incremental backups in that scenario. The advantage out of that kind of scenario is you could perform instant recovery using the snapshot-based backups. The other best thing that we need to consider utilizing is like when you're performing backups on any Microsoft SQL servers, obviously the clients will have two different types of policies. One is the Microsoft operating system based backups, and the second one is for the SQL database backups. So the best practice always we recommend is try to exclude those database files or the volumes where the DBAs keep just the database instances in order to avoid trying to back up the databases via the traditional Windows-based backup. Those are the two methodologies how we protect using that backup master server software and protecting the Microsoft SQL databases.
So Suresh, that's great information about best practices. Can you talk a little bit about how to best performance tuning or deduplication rates for SQL?
Awesome, that's a great question, Jason. So best practice for performance tuning, there are too many variables that we could talk about, right? But it all depends upon the size of the database and what the database team or the admin wants to achieve, right? So let's go very basic. There are a few parameters in SQL. One is the block size, which by default the Microsoft SQL holds software block size of 512 KB. If we make sure that parameter is set appropriately, even on a backup, then the reading and writing of those database instances will be a lot better. And there's a max transfer size. And also there is another parameter which could be impacting the backup performances, like the disk read and write performance. So even before configuring or performing any backups, we need to understand how large the database is and where the database is being hosted from. There's an awesome tool provided by Veritas, which is the net backup performance check tool, which we can utilize to analyze the disk performance. We could create a dummy file and write it to the now dev null device to see how quicker we can write and read. That'll be a benchmark to understand approximately like close to 80 to 90% of the throughput that we could achieve out of the SQL clients. In order to generate better dedupe rates, which everybody is heading towards, in order to utilize the disk efficiently and to move away from tape, there are a couple of methodologies. One is the transaction log files, which is always unique data that gets generated, which gets applied back to the database. So the deduplication rate generated out of the archive logs, the transaction logs, will be very low. So in order to achieve better deduplication rates, it's always recommended to park that in an advanced disk pool and then use SLP to park it to the deduplication disk pool. The other one is the DBAs very often perform a reorganization or defragmentation of the disk, which will completely which will drastically impact the dedupe performance. So we could recommend the DBAs to execute it maybe once in 15 days or so to achieve better dedupe rates for Microsoft SQL databases.
So Suresh, that's great information. So you gave us a really good summary about all the best practices for net backup protecting Microsoft SQL. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason.